What up, you amazing people? Welcome back to another video on ReactJS. In this video, we're going to be discussing about what's new with the ReactJS 16.8. I know I'm a little bit late to the 16.8 party because ReactJS 16.8 came out with a very important concept called as hooks. I'm going to be discussing about what are exactly hooks in this video, but I'm also going to be making it as a two-part series because in this video we can discuss about state hooks and that only, and in the next video we're going to be discussing about what are side effect hooks or effect hooks. So what exactly do hooks even mean? We're going to be discussing about all of that in this video coming right up. Alright, even before we begin, I wanted to let you know guys that we have been doing close to 15 videos before this one came out. So if you are new to the ReactJS itself, I would highly recommend you guys to go back, watch those videos, because we're going to be discussing about what are components, properties, elements, function components, class level components. So all of these are going to be discussed with the prerequisite that you already know all of that. Only then you will understand what hooks really mean. So just get to know all of that concept before jumping right into this video. Alright, so like I told you guys about what are React hooks, and I was discussing that ReactJS hooks came out as part of the ReactJS 16.8. We are currently now with the 16.11, and which means that there have been 3 consecutive releases post the hooks. And also ReactJS currently supports and promotes the use of hooks rather than the class level components. There are a lot of reasons for that. If you guys already know what class level components mean, you already know that we have to write a lot of code for the class level components to work. I mean, it does mean that it's going to be very modularized and everything of that sort, but still we have to write a little bit more code compared to a simple function level component. But the disadvantage with the function level component is that we cannot use the concept of states in that. So states are very important because it's going to be working with the life cycle of the component itself. You can give a state to a component and it means that you're giving a life to the component. So with that concept in mind, we found that, or the ReactJS team found that hooks made it very easy. So what advantage do hooks have? Hooks give you this advantage of using a function level component with states. So what do that really even mean? So we're going to be giving a function level component the concept of states compared to a class level component and having it a state. So why does this change have to come in? The primary reason being that the complex components, for example, if you have a complex class level component, it becomes very difficult to read if a new person is coming into the coding team. So in that scenario, we have to have a simple function level components, which would mean that whatever we want the component to do, we create a simple hook for that and we are done with that. So it's going to be as simple as that. And the second reason being, it's very hard to reuse a stateful component. Let's assume that we have a simple method, like let me open the Visual Studio Code so that it becomes very easy. So we've been doing this series where we did forms in the previous video. So let's assume that we have a simple form. We have the logic of form created for this component, say form component, and we want to have a simple another form somewhere in another page. So are we going to create the components again? Technically, yes, that's what the class level component is going to promote for you. But what the functional component is going to do, it's going to be making it super easy to reuse the component itself wherever you want to use, and that's going to be very useful. So if you guys are going to have a generic component which is going to take a lot of inputs, and it's going to act as an abstract class, it's going to be very simple with the use of function level component compared to the class level component. So that's a main reason we have hooks in place. And that's also the simple definition that you have. With the ReactJS website or the ReactJS docs, they say that hooks are nothing but it's a very simple way of hooking into the component. So we can give a little bit of state to the component or the function level component, and if the function level component does not need any state, we can just remove it at that point and come out. So it's going to be making our life so much easier with the use of function level components, and we can have simple function modularized here and there. And that's the primary reason why we're going to the hooks. So starting with the simple hooks, I'm going to be discussing about what are state hooks. So like I told you, we can even give a simple way of handling a state for the component itself, and that's why we're going to start with a simple state hook. So what I'm going to really do is, first thing first, here when you're importing React, make sure to also import this concept here. So when you do this, what does this mean? So this means that we are going to be calling something called as a use state, and this use state is called as a hook. even if you get very confused as to what does this even going to do, I'm going to create a very simple function. The function is going to be called as counter function. So let's call it a counter function, and this counter function is going to do something very simple. What it's going to do is it's going to return a simple p tag. So the p tag is going to be written with a simple, or we have a simple button here. So let's create a simple div so that if we have a one, and we'll have a p tag. So the p tag is going to say button click is equal to some number. Some number is going to be coming here as a state, right? That's what we do usually with our class level component. But this, for this one, we're going to be creating something called as a button click, and the button click is going to get incremented. So that's the simplest example we have of a state out there. So what exactly are you going to do with the next one? So you just create another button here so that whenever the user clicks the button, the counter should increment. So we'll just do that quickly. We'll do a click here. So this is going to be as simple as that. So let's remove this, and when you now make sure to give this function counter as the render here. So we'll just save that, and just starting the development server. So it's going to take some time for it to come up. This use state is defined but never used. So let's remove this for now. This linter is giving me a lot of problems. Alright, so the button click is equal to, and the click here buttons are present now. Now what we're going to do is we removed it because it said that the linter was saying that it's never used. So I'm not going to render. It was really trying to be okay. So use state is going to be the first hook that we're going to talk about. So what exactly are hooks again? They are going to give us this ability to hook into a function level component. So this is the simplest example of a function level component. Now how do you exactly propose that we give it a little bit of state? So what we need here is that simple of, we can do this dot. Usually what we do with the class level component is this dot state dot increment or counter, and the counter is going to hold the state variable, and as soon as the on click is pressed, we're going to create a simple function here, and on clicking the function, it's going to increment every single time, or we'll call it this the set state method. So now we're going to do something a little bit different. We have this use state here, and what we're going to create is a simple variable. We'll call it a const. We'll put a const, and we'll put a simple counter, and we'll call it a set counter. Now what we are going to do is directly call the use state method, and we can give an initial value or whatever the value that has to be present as part of the counter. So what use state is going to return, it's going to return a tuple. The tuple is going to be the counter as the first argument, and the function itself, which is going to handle the state change, as a second argument. And the use state method takes the default argument, which could be 0. I'll put a 0 here, and here we're going to say counter, right? This is done. Now what else should happen? So when the button click here is pressed, we need to create a simple on click, and all you have to do is do a simple fire that function. The function is going to be fired. Very simply, just call the set counter method and do counter +1. So which means that every time the button is clicked, we're going to increase the count by 1. So just save this up and go back here. It's working, saying the button click is equal to 0, and I'm clicking this. By some magic, it's increasing the count state of the variable, but we're still using a simple function level component. And that's the very simplest use case of a use state method. Now we could have a different stage in this function itself, and you could just have a fun writing use states every single place, and it's going to work just as simple as that. What it's going to return, it's going to return the state counter itself, and it's going to return the method which is going to be responsible for handling this counter value. We could have a lot of different states, lot of different counters, any simple value that you want to increment as part of the function component itself. It could be coming as part of the use state hook, and that's the very simplest example I can give you of the use state hook, which is as new as the ReactJS 16.8. So if you're going to think about writing class level components, start thinking in that direction, because ReactJS says that in the document itself that it's going to be gradually moving towards the use of hooks rather than going for the class level component. Think of this same example that you have to write with a class level component. Let's do a same example here. I'll create a component called as a function counter again, and we'll do an extends react.component. So this is going to be a simple React. So what else do we need? We need a constructor here, and it's going to take a props, and we'll need a super of props. And next thing is going to be the state itself. So if we need a state, and it's going to be, we need to have a state called as counter. The counter is going to have an initial value of 0, and the next thing is going to be our simple render method. So render method is going to be like this. We need to have a div again, and it's going to be a simple p tag. Close it with the p tag, and say button click. Button click is equal to this dot state dot counter. So it's going to be holding a 0, and the next thing is a button. And on the button we'll say click here. And now for the method to change, we need to have a simple handle click, right? So handle or increment counter method, and the increment counter method is going to just simply do is this dot set state, and it will do so this is what it's going to do. It's going to set state, and we're going to call this as part of on click here. You don't need this, we just need this. Okay, and do not forget to bind this method. So this dot increment counter is equal to this dot increment counter dot bind again of this, and we are done. Awesome, we are done. We'll just see what shows up on the screen. So again, you have a button click is equal to, and in clicking, oh my god, this is incrementing primarily because okay, I'm doing a simple error here. I'm doing a state is equal to, I should be doing this the counter. So counter. So what a simple mistake. Okay. Awesome, it's working. And this is the code that you have to write for the same use case compared to what we did with a function level component with a simple hook. See how simple it is and how easy it is to actually use the function level component hook rather than a class level component hook. Let me go back to that code so that we can just see the difference between how this works and that works. So this is the same code again. Compile, run. We just finished the entire counter example in less than 10 lines compared to a function with a class level component where I had to write more than 25 lines. Not just a line of code, but also the complexity. Think about writing a very huge component which is going to have multiple states flying here and there. Would you recommend going for class level component, or would you use hooks with a simple state hook and just get work done? I would highly recommend you guys to start practicing using the state hooks like this, and it's going to be very, very simple going forward with the coming up releases with ReactJS, because ReactJS itself says that we'll gradually move towards this part because it's very easy to implement, very easy to maintain, and also very easy to understand for the other programmers who come into the team. So all of that combined together makes the hooks the best solution for having a complex code, and that's why I also wanted to talk about this topic as part of this video. So in this video, we did discuss about the state hooks, but in the next video, we're going to be discussing about what are the effect hooks or the side effect hooks. What exactly are they going to do? In short, is that it's going to give the lifecycle methods. For example, we added with the class level components, the component did mount and the component will unmount. So these two methods are where we're going to be firing up as a start and end methods when a component was going to be created. So what we're going to do is we're going to mimic that as part of the use effect hook, and we're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff with that. So I'm going to be coming out with that video in the next one. Make sure that you watch that as well to understand what the exact hooks mean. Let me meet you in that video. Until then, Bharat, peace out. Have a super awesome day.